अस्सलाम वालेकुम। नजम सेठी स्पेशल के साथ मैं हूं मुनीब फारूक और मेरे साथ मौजूद हैं नजम सेठी साहब। नाज़रीन, कुछ रोज़ कबल नजम सेठी साहब इंडिया गए थे और वहाँ पर इनका एक इंटरव्यू किया गया जो कि करण थापड़ ने किया, जो कि वहाँ के एक बहुत ही सीजन्ड और वेल नोन जर्नलिस्ट हैं। आइए सबसे पहले वो इंटरव्यू देखते हैं और उसके बाद सेठी साहब से पूछते हैं कि जो इनसे सवालात किए गए उनके इस तरह के जवाबात उन्होंने क्यों दिए। तो आइए सबसे पहले वो इंटरव्यू देखते हैं।
Hello, welcome to India Tonight. I'm Karan Thapar. Recent reports from Pakistan suggest that the rivalry between President Zardari and Prime Minister Gilani is creating turmoil in the country's politics. Could that in any way affect the prosecution of the Mumbai accused, which gets underway next week in Rawalpindi? And how does the outcome of Sharm el-Sheikh reflect on this situation? Those are the key issues I shall discuss in a moment with one of Pakistan's foremost editors, the editor of the Daily Times and the Friday Times, Najam Sethi, who is visiting India this week for the launch of his son's first novel. Najam Sethi, let's start with the political situation in Pakistan. Earlier this week, an ambassadorial appointment, allegedly made at the behest of the President, was overturned by the Prime Minister. And now your newspapers are talking of the Prime Minister dropping certain members of the Cabinet who are supposed to be close to the President, including, it said, the Interior Minister Rahman Malik. So let me first ask you, what exactly is the state of relationship between Asif Ali Zardari and Yusuf Gilani?
It's a good relationship. All these stories are highly exaggerated. There is no real enduring tension between the two of them. Mr. Gilani, the Prime Minister, is Mr. Zardari's man, and there is no two ways about it. This is exaggerated thinking in the press. There's no more to it than that.
Except for the fact that it's not just the foreign press that are picking up and playing these stories. Newspapers in your country like the News, admittedly I should add not your paper, the Daily Times, have been giving a lot of prominence to the discord or the differences between the two. You discount it completely?
No, there are no differences. Mr. Gilani basically does the President's bidding. There have been instances where there's been some misunderstanding. For example, the President wanted this particular gentleman appointed ambassador to France, and there was a huge hue and cry about it from the Foreign Office. The media got into it, and then I think the President simply backtracked and told the Prime Minister, well, go ahead and not do it. But the Prime Minister could not have taken this decision without a nod from the President. So I think the relationship is fine. The President does tend to jump the gun from time to time and takes executive orders and so on, some of which have to be withdrawn. But the Prime Minister does that also occasionally. So there is really no real serious tension between the two of them. Yes, there are interested parties in Pakistan, the Muslim League of Nawaz Sharif, that is interested in playing up these differences, in a sense trying to tell the Prime Minister to become more independent. I think there are elements within the military establishment also who would like to see a more independent Prime Minister and a weakened the President. And I dare say there is a section of the media that has got the knife out for the President. But having said that, I do not see any critical or core issues between the President and the Prime Minister.
What about the comment made by President Obama? It was made in early April that the civilian government is fragile, that it can't deliver basic services. Would you agree with that?
Yes, there is a serious problem. Part of the problem is that Mr. Zardari doesn't really have a great functional team. He's inherited people from Benazir Bhutto that he doesn't get along with, and he has some cronies in his cabinet as well who are not terribly competent or efficient. So that is definitely a terrible situation from the President's point of view.
But are those grounds for a cabinet reshuffle? And if they are, would that reshuffle then be misinterpreted, as you would suggest, to claim that there are differences between the two?
No, I think the President is completely on board. If there is going to be a cabinet reshuffle, there may be some ministers who are going to shift positions. Maybe one or two new guys will come in. But it will all be done with the approval of the President, and there will be no tension.
So the reshuffle won't be an indication of problems between PM and President?
No, and this other news that I read in the Indian papers today about maybe Rahman Malik, the Interior Minister, being shunted out, I think it's complete nonsense. Rahman Malik is the President's man, and if Rahman Malik were to go, then yes, then it would indicate a very serious rift between the two of them, and I don't think that's on the cards at all.
What about the perception that particularly since March, when the Chief Justice was reinstated, the hand of the Prime Minister has steadily grown stronger, whilst the position of the President has grown weaker? Is that perception correct?
That is correct. The reason for that is that the President took some political decisions which have backfired on him. A number of decisions and a number of pledges that he made in public regarding the restoration of the judges and so on and so forth. And then the army in America had to move in and lean on the President to do these things. And of course the President tends to take a back seat in public diplomacy, so the Prime Minister had to be put forward. And so the Prime Minister saved the day for him.
So there is a sense in which the balance of power between the two has slightly moved in the Prime Minister's favour, but there is no discord, no disagreement, no division between them.
There is no discord, no division. The balance of power will move towards the executive, which is the Prime Minister, especially now that there is talk in the country about removing certain constitutional amendments which empower the President. So that is bound to happen before the year is
You're in fact referring to an agreement that was reached just about a week ago between President Zardari and Nawaz Sharif, when President Zardari visited Nawaz Sharif's estate outside Lahore, where they've agreed to do away with the special powers conferred on the presidency by Musharraf.
All this is up in the air at the moment. There are several parliamentary committees that are looking into it. Each party has put up a parliamentary committee to look at the constitutional amendment that is needed. But the discussions are on. No timetable has been set as to when this is likely to happen.
But is it decided that this will happen and just not decided when?
Well, this was decided, Karan, this was
up?
decided between Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif in 2006, and Mr. Zardari has not reneged from that. So in a sense he says, yes, we will do it, but when and how, that remains to be seen.
So it's quite possible that despite the perception of weakness, he may continue to be a all-powerful president and may not be rendered a ceremonial president for many years to come.
But his power is slipping for various reasons, and it is my opinion that he will have to relinquish some powers in order to keep his government stable.
Any idea when?
I think before the year is out, he will have to take some steps.
So by the end of this year, he will be a lot less powerful than he is today.
Technically, legally speaking, constitutionally speaking. Effectively, no, I don't think so, because he is the head of the political party, and he may end up then playing the sort of role that your Mrs. Gandhi plays here.
In which case, he then will need the total support and loyalty of the Prime Minister, and the question marks about that will have to disappear.
Something like that, yes.
What about something else that's been talked about? Mr. Rahman Malik said that people who send satirical or joking SMS messages and emails about the president could end up facing 14 years in jail. Is that really going to happen? And if it is, how's it gone down with people in Pakistan?
Well, the thing is that, a lot of SMSs and emails against Mr. Zardari, I think they reacted to that. And Rahman Malik has a reputation of reacting. He's more loyal than the king. And I think Rahman Malik reacted in that sense. And the Prime Minister's statement now that he was, that this is not a cabinet decision, tends to put that in perspective.
Again, the Prime Minister's statement that this is not a cabinet decision, which contradicted Rahman Malik's position, looks as if the Prime Minister is pitting himself against the President.
It looks like that, but it isn't the case. Often ministers speak out of turn. They say things. The Prime Minister has to turn around and say, no, that's not official policy. There is a lot of confusion in terms of who's who, precisely because some people are reporting to the President and others are reporting to the Prime Minister.
If I recall correctly, one of the great strengths of your Friday newspaper, the Friday Times, was the Mush Bush column, and it made very merciless fun of the alleged relationship between President Musharraf and George Bush, and it was one of the selling points of your paper. Now, not only do you not have a similar column about Zardari, but it seems that the Zardari regime, or at least Rahman Malik, are very prickly about people making jokes about the president. Is this regime slightly lacking in humor compared to the last one?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think Rahman Malik has a tendency to sort of shoot from the hip, but he retreats as quickly as he shoots from the hip. You'll see this SMS controversy dying out. It's no big deal.
So you don't expect people to be jailed for sending SMSs making fool of the president?
No, not at all.
All right, let's come to the steps that Pakistan is taking to bring the Bombay accused to justice. To begin with, Hafiz Saeed, will the state effectively appeal against his release? The reason I ask is that it took the Pakistani authorities a month and a few days more to decide whether they were going to appeal. And then since that decision was taken, it seems the Punjab government is very keen to withdraw their side of the appeal. So will it happen or not?
Yeah, there are a couple of problems in this. The first, of course, is that, our prosecution system is terrible. It's very rare for us to be able to put together a case against anyone.
You concede that readily?
Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible to get a conviction, by due process. Secondly, the government had put Hafiz Saeed behind bars, but they really have not much evidence against him, number one. Number two, whether now they've been interested in collecting that evidence or not is another factor.
What's your answer to the second?
My answer is, there's a twilight zone. There's a lot of grey areas over here. Hafiz Saeed itself, he's up front in the sense that in terms of his views. But for the government to go and catch Hafiz Saeed and then get into a tangle with the Lashkar-e-Taiba, will require not just the federal government and the army being on the same page, it will require the Punjab government being on the same page as well.
So then when the Indian authorities turn around and say that Pakistan hasn't pursued Hafiz Saeed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jamaat-ul-Dawa as effectively and seriously as they could have, you are in a way conceding that that is true. But you're also saying that it's just too much of a problem for this government to take on.
This government has got its hands full. To take on the Lashkar-e-Taiba and antagonize sections of the military establishment and the Punjab government, not possible.
That's in a moment's time. See you after break.